What can you do to get an angry, venting customer to stop talking and listen to you? To get them to accept your word as final? That's coming up in this video. I have divided this video into sections covering some of the most challenging interactions, the most challenging conversations you will have with a customer, from how to deliver bad news, to managing expectations, to what to say to the customer who is cussing at you, and even more. So stick around. I'm going to give you 57 phrases across multiple categories. I've broken down the chapters so you can see each category and when that will start in the video. That's down in the description, or you can stick around and watch the entire video. All right, let's get started. We're starting with phrases to help you acknowledge what your customer is feeling, to validate what you think they are feeling. And it's important to validate your customer because we want to move them out of the emotional right brain. So we have two halves of the brain. Our left brain is our logical side, where we are when we're doing math or doing our taxes or taking a standardized test. This is when we're logical and we're reasonable. We're a lot easier to deal with. But customers, when they are unhappy or upset, are more likely to be in the right brain. If your customer is venting excessively, they're in the right emotional brain. The right brain is where we experience every emotion: joy, fear, anger, surprise, shame, grief. We do not want our customers stuck in the emotional right brain, because in the right brain, they're going to be more talkative. They're going to vent longer. They're going to be, in general, more difficult. In the right brain, people do what is natural. If it's natural for me to demand a higher authority, a manager, that's what I'll do. Or if it's natural for me to overtalk you, to use profanity, to slap you. Some people will go to that extreme. They will do that in the right brain. So we need to give phrases that move people out of the emotional right brain and get them to a place of whole brain thinking. And these phrases will do exactly that for you. I realize how frustrating this must be for you. I really like the word frustrate when I am validating a customer. I don't want to use the word mad or angry. I'm not going to say I realize how angry you are, because I don't want to inflame a person who's probably already a bit upset. I'm trying to bring you down. I'm trying to get you out of that emotional right brain. The word frustrate is right there in the middle. So it doesn't assume too much that you're mad or angry, and yet it doesn't minimize. You're going to hear me use the word frustrate in some form in several of the phrases that we have here today. I can see why you're upset about this. So I'm validating, like, I get it, I hear you, I feel your pain. Upset is not quite as great of a word as frustrate, but it'll work. We want to stay away from angry, of course, and mad. It sounds like this has been a really challenging situation for you, and your tone matters here. You want to sound concerned. You want to come across as empathetic in these phrases, because what we're trying to do is bring a person down, calm them down, get them out of the right brain, and have them listen to us. I can see your point on that. I love this phrase. I don't even have to agree with a person to say, I can see your point. I'm saying I'm holding space for you to have that perspective, to react that way. I can see your point. It's a way to validate whether we agree or not. And when we validate, we're linking the chain and helping the customer move forward, which is going to shorten our talk time. I'm sorry to hear that you're feeling this way. Sometimes I don't know what to say, but this will be perfect. I'm sorry that this is your experience. I'm not taking away from that, just speaking to that. Thank you for sharing that with me. I had a customer support person say that to me several years ago when I was calling a cellular company to have my father's wireless phone disconnected after he passed away. And the agent asked why I wanted to terminate service. And I'm sure she had to. It's just a part of it to keep a customer. And I said, I'm turning the phone off because my father has passed away. And then she paused for a beat and said, thank you for sharing that with me. And her tone it was empathetic, it was sympathetic. And I felt that it was genuine. And it took that awkward moment. I guess it didn't take it away, but it let us move forward. So sometimes we don't know what to say. So say what feels right in that moment. I'd feel the same way in your shoes. If you can really relate to that situation, if it were me, this is how I would feel, then say that. That's a powerful way for you to connect and validate your customer. Phrases for when you have to give your customer bad news. We have to get good at giving bad news because it is at the point when we say no, tell a person what they don't want to hear, that they are most likely to escalate. So I've got some great phrases for you. Let me give you 2 pieces of advice as we go into the phrases for giving bad news. I want you to work on sounding confident, feeling confident and sounding confident. Customers are more likely to accept your word as final if you sound confident. You're going to get less pushback. And I want you to also focus on being assertive. My definition of assertive is say what you mean what you say, and don't be mean when you say it. So keep those 2 points in mind as we go into our phrases for giving bad news. Regrettably, it is not possible for us to fulfill your request in this instance because I know this is not what you want to hear, but we cannot provide the solution you want. I understand that this is not the outcome you were hoping for, and I'm sorry for any inconvenience it may cause. Now, this phrase does a lot. It's offering an apology, it's empathy, it is validating what the customer wants, even though you cannot give them what they want. So this is a powerful phrase that I hope that you will adapt and use it in your situations. While I wish we could do more, we cannot accommodate your request. And finally, I'm sorry to inform you that we cannot provide the assistance you're seeking. Now, you would have to be confident and assertive to make that statement, but you can do it. And you're more likely to get the customer to accept your word as final when you use powerful statements that validate and in which you are confident and assertive. All right, let's jump right into what do we say when a customer is cussing at us or in any way is inappropriate with their language or their tone. And what I mean is if your customer is over talking you, yelling, interrupting you, being obscene, and of course, profanity. You need to address that. You have the right to set a boundary and uphold that boundary. Here are some great phrases to help you do just that. I'm sorry. I can't help while listening to that language. If it stops, I can help. That is confident, that is assertive. You can say that without any guilt or any fear. I'm trying to help you, but the language is getting in the way. If a few minutes helps you calm down before continuing, that would be fine. You can certainly call us back. Now, if you choose to use this phrase, and I love it, I want to caution you to make sure you don't come across as aggressive or even defensive. I want your posture here to be confident, to be assertive, a person who is setting boundaries because they are not going to be disrespected. Limit your responses to simple assurances like I see, or oh. What we're doing here is trying to be anti-inflammatory. If you've got a person who is loud, over talking you, they're rude with their words or their volume, their attitude even, say as little as possible. Not in a passive posture, but in a way to kind of let them calm down, let them take in what they are saying and how that is impacting you. I'm trying to help you, but if you continue to yell or swear, interrupt me, whatever they're doing, I will ask you to call back again. Now remember, we're not going to be defensive. We'll be assertive and say what we need to say. I understand you're upset, but I kindly ask that you refrain from using inappropriate language during our conversation. I am happy to help you, but I ask that you respectfully speak to me. We've all talked to customers who want to push past us and talk to a manager. Maybe they come right out of the gate wanting a manager, or they're frustrated when we can't give them what they want. Let me give you some phrases for what to say and how to say it when your customer asks for your manager. Will you first give me a chance to help you? That's why I'm here. Now, here we want to make sure that we don't come across as defensive. We simply want to have a conversation. We're pleading with them to let us do our job. And besides, us doing our job will probably save them time. It will be much faster if you sit and work with me rather than wait for a manager. I understand that you're requesting to speak with a manager. I'm confident in my ability to assist you. But if you would still like to speak with a manager, I will do my best to connect you. Do you mind if I try to help you first? This phrase is very similar to the last one. It's more words. So you want to go in the direction that you feel the most confident, that makes the most sense. You can do all the right things, and your customer will still want to speak to your manager, and that's okay. As long as you make a genuine effort to try to assist, know that you've done your best. You've done your job. Phrases for when you are offering your customer options. Optioning is a powerful way to de-escalate, and it might feel effortless. Generally speaking, the more options a customer has, the more likely they are to calm down on their own. So you want to present options, and you want to present options in such a way that your customers are more likely to accept one of them, or that they know that if they choose not to accept the option, that it was entirely their choice. So here are some ways to phrase your options. Try what is known as the feel, felt, found method. Feel, felt, found is actually a sales tool to help overcome objections with customers who are wanting or considering buying a product or service. I like to use it as a way to present options. And basically what you're doing is explaining to the customer, and let me put the phrases, the words back up there. You want to explain to them that you get how they feel. Other customers have felt that way, and the customers that felt that way, here's what they found. So one of my clients, one of their complaints that was especially troublesome was when a customer wanted to know the full ingredients in a yogurt product. And this company was not able to disclose the full ingredient list. It was their secret sauce. Many times when people wanted to know the ingredients, it's because they had a food allergy or someone that they cared for had a food allergy. So it's not that they wanted to copy the recipe for the yogurt. They just wanted to make sure that it was safe. But even with that being the case, my client could not give away the full ingredient list. So I suggested for my client that they try the feel, felt, found method in this scenario, where they would explain to the customer, I actually gave them an example. My daughter has a walnut allergy. So I use it as if I were the employee talking to a customer by relating, because I'm a mother of someone with a food allergy. I said, I really get how you feel. My daughter has a walnut allergy. So that is the first piece, the feel. I have felt exactly the way you do, in that what if there is walnuts in this and my child gets sick? But here's what I found to be helpful. While our yogurt does not list every ingredient, any ingredient that is known to trigger an allergy or that triggers a known allergy is listed on the label. So you don't have the full ingredient list, but if there are peanuts, for example, or peanut oil, we are going to list that because that is a known allergy. So try the feel, felt, found method. You're much more likely to get people to take the option if you present it in that way. Another one is, here's what we can do for you. You've heard this before. Focus on what you can do versus what you can't do. I have a few options to help you resolve this issue. Would you be open to exploring some alternative solutions? We have a few options available to meet your needs. And of course, your tone really matters. You want to sound enthusiastic. You want to sound confident and assertive with any option that you present. And finally, I'd like to present some potential solutions for your consideration. The word potential is important here because the solutions may not work for them. It may not work in this case. The bottom line is be assertive and confident if not enthusiastic, as you present any options. Thank you so much for staying with me as we break down phrases to de-escalate any angry customer. Now we're looking at how to end a circular conversation. A circular conversation with your customer is a conversation that just goes on and on and on. The customer is not accepting your no. They don't like the bad news that you've given them, so they're venting. They're making their case. Maybe they're making threats. They're offering options that you just cannot comply with. So we need to end that conversation. If we don't, we're going to have a call control problem on our hands. So let's look at how to end the circular conversation. We can end it with validation. We realize this is frustrating for you. Sometimes a customer doesn't feel heard. They don't feel understood. And you can link the communication chain with validation. And in some cases, that is going to stop the back and forth. It might look like this. We realize this is frustrating for you, and I'd like to explain. Not only is an unplanned stop not feasible with scheduling, but regulation also doesn't allow it. Now, this is a phrase I wrote directly for one of my sanitation clients for a rural area. Sometimes the company would forget or neglect to pick up someone's trash or recycling, or maybe the customer just didn't have it out in time, and they would call into the office, and they wanted to have an unplanned stop perhaps the next day to pick up their waste, but that wasn't going to happen. In this case, we had to explain that it's a matter of regulation. So if you want to explain the why, give a reason. We're regulated by the state of Washington and the Utility Transportation Commission and must abide by planned routes. What we can do is pick up your recycling on June 9th. Now, there's a lot there, but when you're trying to get your customer to accept your word as final, you need to do a lot. You need to explain the why. And if it's a regulation or a policy or a warranty issue, explain that so that they know where they stand. But you want to validate. We realize it's frustrating before you give all of those details. We won't be able to. Here's an example of that. We don't negotiate our fees. We won't be able to work together on this. I hope you find the perfect facilitator for your retreat and that the event is a complete success. This is actually a phrase I had to use with one of my would-be clients. They wanted to negotiate, and I wanted to be gracious in turning them down. I needed to maintain fee integrity, so that's why I use the phrase, we won't be able to. So take that, we won't be able to, use it in any way you need to fill in the blank. So you're very assertive and final in what you can or cannot do. I respect your opinion. Here's an example of what that might look like. I respect your opinion. Our company policy is not to pay claims involving consumer error. We have a responsibility to the company to uphold the integrity of our products. As long as the product performs as expected and has no defects, we cannot accept responsibility and cannot provide financial assistance. So you want to, explain, look for the policy, look for the reason, and share that. Whatever that policy is, and that is how you increase the chances that your customer accepts your word as final. We cannot, which is similar to another phrase, but simply we cannot. This is assertive and it is final. And then we're going to add to that a reason, an example of how you might do that. We cannot refill your expired contact lens prescription. The FDA regulates us, and the FDA does not allow us to refill expired contact lenses. So you want to explain the why. Anytime you have to say no or give bad news, if you want to have the customer accept your word as final, just give a reason. To prevent this from happening in the future, I'd like to blank. To prevent this from happening in the future, I'd like to give you some tips on how to care for your flex band. A company used this with me. It was actually Fitbit many, many years ago. My flex band, and I'm not even sure if they still make the flex band, it ripped. And the company replaced it quickly. And it was in a chat while I was waiting for final details to be entered into the system, this is what the chat agent said. So to prevent this breakage in the future, I'd like to offer you some tips. So he gave me the tips, a link to the tips. So basically you're trying to manage expectations here that if it happens again, we're not able to replace it if your band is out of warranty, for example. I agree, blank. But regrettably, and maybe not the word but, I agree blank. Regrettably, that's not possible because. And here's an example of that. I agree that we need to get someone to look at your lawn as quickly as possible. Regrettably, all of our technicians and managers are out serving other customers right now. This is another phrase that I wrote for a client where the customer was unhappy and needed somebody to come in and take a look. And they wanted it done that day or the very next day, and it just wasn't possible. So sometimes it's staffing limitations. Whatever the issue is, I want you to always, and you see the common thread here in my examples, always validate your customer and then give a reason for why you cannot do what they're asking you to do. There are times when you need to say, I'm sorry to a customer. So let me give you some great phrases and guidance on how to say, I'm sorry. We want to be careful not to admit fault, not take responsibility before we've had an opportunity to research the issue. There's a difference between saying the words, I'm sorry, and I apologize. An apology is an admission of guilt. You are owning the issue. And there's a lot of times when you'll need to do that, especially in your personal life. In the workplace, it is much more appropriate to say the words, I'm sorry, particularly when it comes to supporting customers. I'm sorry is an expression of empathy. It's validating your customer's concern. I have a full video on the difference between I'm sorry and apologizing. I'll make sure to put a link in the description so that you can see the difference. But for now, I want you to know we are going to focus on phrases that say I'm sorry, phrases that convey a sense of empathy. I'm sorry for any frustration this has caused you. I'm sorry you had to make this call today, yet I'm glad I was able to help. I'm sorry for any misunderstanding this has caused. I'm sorry we didn't deliver the level of service you expected and deserve. Each of these phrases will be genuine, especially when you have the right tone. You're confident, you're assertive, you're friendly with the expression, but you're not going to admit fault. And that's exactly what we want to avoid. So be sure again to check out my video. I'll put the link in the description on I'm sorry versus apologizing. These phrases will help you convey empathy, which will preempt an escalation and help you connect with the customer on a sincere level. Phrases for managing expectations. It is so important that we do not overpromise and then end up under delivering. I want you to remember that today's exception is tomorrow's expectations. So tomorrow's expectation. So we are going to have to be crystal clear when we tell a customer something or point them to the next steps. We want to manage expectations so we do not have an issue later. I will do my best to help you, but I cannot guarantee a specific outcome. I will do everything I can to help you, but finding a resolution may take some time. Here you're setting the expectation that it may not happen in this interaction. You can even go further and giving them a time frame. We're looking at 3 to 7 business days, for example. Please understand that there may be limitations to what I can do in this situation. This is great to say up front when you are researching and you suspect that it may not work. Maybe you can fill some dead airspace with this expectation. Quite powerful here. While I cannot promise a specific outcome, I assure you I will do my best to help you. I appreciate your patience as we work together to find a solution. So manage expectations by being clear, being transparent so that you don't have an issue later. There are situations where you have to deny what the customer is wanting because what they want goes against policy, or maybe it's a regulation, a government regulation, for example. I want to give you phrases that you can adapt to make your word final and also convey empathy within your statements. Now, a lot of these statements are statements that I wrote directly for my clients in these exact situations where it's a violation of policy and there's a no-go. I'm sorry for any inconvenience this may cause you. What I love about this phrase is you are validating upfront the inconvenience, but you're making your word final. Because your licensing requirements weren't followed, penalties have been assessed. XYZ company will not renew any license until all penalties are met and cleared. This is a phrase I wrote for one of my clients that really struggled when one of their agents would let their license expire or let it lapse because they just failed to retake the exam or get paperwork in. And they'd be upset when they called in because letting the license lapse meant they could not legally practice. But there was a wait, sometimes weeks to months, before they could get reestablished. That was something that always escalated. This phrase is quite firm. Because you did X, penalties are assessed. Not only will you have to retake the exam, but you have the penalties. So you want to be very clear on what is going to happen. You're managing expectations. You're clear. And you let them know that my word is final. You do all of that in your statement, that of course you will adapt. We realize this isn't what you wanted to hear, but we may have options for you. So you're validating. I know you don't want to hear this. Basically, what's not said, but what you're communicating is it is what it is. We can't change that. Perhaps we can look at these options. It doesn't mean that they will work for them, but you can present options. The FDA mandates our prescription process. This is another direct phrase I wrote for a client. We must see patients every 12 months before writing a prescription. This is to ensure the health of your eyes through regular examinations. Now, I wrote this for my client when it was an optometry practice. When people would get upset, they call in and just wanted to renew their contact lens prescription. Their eyes hadn't changed, but the office insisted that they come in. But it doesn't work that way. The FDA regulates that. It's not something that's negotiable. So you want to be quite clear. Give them the why. That helps people accept the news when you tell them why. It is our company policy that we cannot pay a claim that involves consumer error. We have a responsibility to the company to uphold the integrity of our products and accordingly cannot offer a refund or replacement. In these phrases, when your absolute answer is no to what they're directly asking for, you're going to have to be clear, offer an explanation as to why, and show empathy. All of that has to be in the phrase. But when you do all of that with confidence, you're much more likely to get your customer to accept your word as final. Now let's take a look at phrases that convey empathy to your customers. Empathy is a powerful tool that can help you de-escalate, preempt an escalation, come across as friendly and personable. It is what makes people feel heard. It's what we use to validate. So I have several empathy phrases that you can use as they are, or you can adapt to your situation. I realize this has to be frustrating for you. I want to get to the bottom of this as much as you do. This is one of my favorite phrases to use when I feel there's a disconnect or I'm still getting pushback from the customer in any way. I let them know we're on the same side. The problem is the problem, and we want the same thing, to resolve the problem. This phrase does all of that. I can see your point on that. Since you are arguing or there's a disagreement with your customer, you can make this phrase without agreeing. I see your point. Doesn't mean I have to side with you. It's a powerful way to quickly validate and get the customer to move on. I'm sorry about the wait. We are short-staffed, but still, I'm sorry. In this phrase that you will adapt, of course, you are validating what the customer is complaining about and giving a reason, not an excuse, a reason. So you're doing a lot and you're saying, I'm sorry, all in one statement. So consider adapting this to whatever the issue the customer is complaining about. I'd be upset too. If you can genuinely relate to the situation that the customer is speaking of and you would be upset, go ahead and say that. It's a powerful way to connect with your customer. You deserved a lot better from us and we let you down. When you are comfortable owning the situation, not necessarily apologizing about it, but you get it. You feel their pain. This is a way to validate in a transparent way. If I were in your position, I'm sure I'd feel like you do. When we can connect and establish common ground, we are de-escalating or we are preempting an escalation. I know you're anxious to see this completed. And then just fill in the blank, whatever you think they're feeling. Anxious. I actually got this from a chat that I had with a retailer. I was chatting to find out the status of my return, and the chat agents explained that it could take up to 17 days from the date the item was received at their headquarters. But then she said in the chat, I know you're anxious to see this completed. I love that because that is what I was feeling. So I know you're frustrated about this situation, or I know you're anxious. I know you're eager. Just fill in the blank. It's a way to connect and validate. I know this isn't the same as having a perfect blank, but I hope it shows how sorry we are. So you might use this if you've given a gift card or a discount or a replacement. So I know this isn't the same as having a perfect shipment in the first place, but I do hope the discount shows you how sorry we are. This can be powerful, especially with the right tone. I'm sorry you've had to call multiple times about the same issue. My goal is to get this resolved on this phone call. You stayed with me until the end. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to my ideas for how to phrase our approaches so that we're more likely to get the customer to back down and listen to us. When you choose to adopt and apply and even adapt the phrases that I have shared with you today, good things begin to happen. When you acknowledge your customer's pain point and you validate them with the phrases that I've given you, you're going to move your customers out of that emotional right brain, and I promise you they will be so much easier for you to deal with. The phrases for giving bad news will help you feel more confident and sound more confident. That confidence is going to help you be far more likely to get your customer to accept your word as final. Assertively telling a customer that they will not cuss at you, overtalk you, disrespect you is going to empower you. Your customer will respect you. They may not like it, and not all will comply. They're not going to all do what we want them to do, but they will respect you, and you will feel good about setting a boundary. When you tactfully handle the customer who wants to speak to your manager, you will know that you did your best. Even if they still push back and want to talk to your manager, you will know that you offered to help, you were professional and non-defensive in your offering. Optioning is a powerful tool to control the conversation, both to shorten the conversation and to get the customer to be more likely to pursue an option. And it's a powerful de-escalation tool. Ending a circular conversation with my phrases will amaze you. You will be amazed at the way you stop that back and forth. Even if the customer is not happy, you're going to shorten the call, feel confident, and feel empowered. Saying I'm sorry instead of apologizing. Remember, apologizing is admitting fault. It's just smart to go that way. Using the words I'm sorry as an empathy statement, as a way to validate, is powerful. And again, I will put a link in the description for the video I have on this channel where I break down in detail the difference between saying I'm sorry and apologizing. Managing expectations is crucial. Again, today's exception is tomorrow's expectation, or even today's misstatement. Today's overpromising is going to make for a bigger problem later. So now you've got phrases to help you manage expectations. And finally, empathy. The phrases that I've given you for empathy will help you connect with your customers, will help you validate. So that improves the customer experience, and empathy is a powerful tool to help you preempt an escalation. These phrases will work for you. Customers will respect you. People respect a person who will set boundaries by saying what they mean, meaning what they say without being mean when you say it. The more often and the longer you practice assertive communication, the easier it gets, and the more successful you become in getting customers to back down, to listen to you and accept your word as final. I cannot wait to see what you do. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.
They know, they know, they know, they know, they know, they know, yeah, they know, 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 yeah, they know. Tunnel vision when I hit the holly. Working on that cause my mind is on an island. Told my babies I'll be homeless, so don't stay up. Breaks my heart to see them sad, so I won't wait.